You are a mountain. Think about what that would feel like. Each day, you stand unyielding, unmoved, as the elements rage around you. Sunlight, rain, wind, even storms, all come and go, yet you remain steady. There's something powerful about that image, isn't there? This picture of inner steadiness is what the Stoics refer to as the inner citadel. A fortress within you that no storm, no opinion, no rejection can reach. But let me ask you this: what keeps most people from reaching this level of unshakable strength? If we dig into that question, we start to uncover a truth about human nature and the mind's tendency to seek control over things far beyond our reach. We feel the need to dictate the reactions of others, to control outcomes, or to guarantee safety in a world that's often unpredictable. And so we spend a great deal of our lives trying to hold on to things that are, in truth, out of our grasp. Today's session is about understanding that tension between what you can control and what you cannot. This fundamental principle will serve as the bedrock of everything we'll explore in the weeks and years ahead. It's so central to Stoic philosophy that it's often the first lesson taught, even though it takes years to master. But here's the enticing part. Once you fully internalize this concept, it frees you from many of life's greatest sources of stress, anxiety, and disappointment. Let's examine the basics. The Stoic thinker Epictetus, who was once a slave, taught that all things in life can be divided into two categories: what is within our control and what is not. It's easy to brush off this idea as simple, too obvious to be profound. But as we dig deeper, I think you'll start to see that this dichotomy is not only more complex, but also more liberating than it might first appear. So, what exactly falls within our control? Epictetus says it comes down to three things: our judgments, our intentions, and our responses. That's it. Everything else, the weather, the actions of others, the outcome of events, is outside our direct control. This might sound limiting, almost as if it diminishes our power. But let me ask you this: if we truly focused only on what is within our control, how would that change the way we live? Consider this. Each time you experience stress, pause and ask yourself, what part of this situation do I control? When you encounter frustration, irritation, or anger, it's often because you are attempting to control the uncontrollable. For example, if you're frustrated that someone is not responding the way you wish, you're struggling against an outcome that's beyond your influence. Recognizing that boundary between your influence and the other person's free will can be incredibly freeing. The Stoics understood that freedom isn't about controlling more, it's about choosing how to respond to what you cannot control. Let's use a metaphor here. Imagine you're a sailor out at sea. You have no control over the weather or the waves, but you have control over how you set your sails, how you navigate through storms, and the direction you choose. The Stoic sailor doesn't waste time wishing for calm waters. They learn to master their ship, to adjust their course with wisdom and strength. But why does this lesson matter? You might ask, how will this help me? Think of the immense energy you'll save by releasing the need to control what's not yours to direct. This energy can be channeled into refining your character, improving your resilience, and becoming that mountain we talked about. By focusing on your responses, you become less swayed by the highs and lows of fortune. You become anchored, calm, and more powerful in your inner world. In fact, this concept of inner control is tied closely to Stoic teachings on virtue. To the Stoics, virtue, the pursuit of wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, is the highest good. They believed that a good life is not dependent on wealth, pleasure, or reputation, but on cultivating these virtues. And here's the surprising link: it is only through focusing on what we can control that we can truly live a virtuous life. Imagine trying to be courageous while obsessing over someone else's opinion of you. Or imagine trying to be just while constantly reacting to things beyond your control. Virtue requires inner stability, and inner stability requires the discipline to distinguish between what you can and cannot change. Let's take a real-life example. Picture a person in a challenging work environment. They face constant criticism from a manager who seems impossible to please. Now, this person has two choices. They can focus on what is beyond their control: the opinions of their manager, the outcomes of their projects, even the possibility of being promoted or demoted. Or they can focus on what is within their control: their dedication, their attitude, and their commitment to excellence. This individual might not be able to change the manager's opinion, but by focusing on what they can control, they find a sense of purpose and peace even in a turbulent environment. They choose to be their best self, regardless of external validation or criticism. By now, you might be asking, but how do I put this into practice when emotions arise? After all, it's one thing to grasp this idea logically and quite another to apply it in real time. Emotions like anger, fear, or frustration don't disappear simply because we understand the concept. This is where the real work begins, and where the Stoics offer a practical solution, a practice known as negative visualization. Negative visualization is a technique where you imagine, in a controlled and intentional way, the potential outcomes you fear or the losses you dread. Imagine, for example, that you visualize losing a valued possession or experiencing a setback. At first, this might sound morbid or counterintuitive. Why dwell on what could go wrong? But here's the beauty of it. By imagining the possibility, you prepare yourself emotionally. You train yourself not to be devastated if these things do happen. The Stoics saw this practice as a mental rehearsal that builds resilience, allowing us to accept loss with grace. Think of it as a vaccination for the soul, a way to inoculate yourself against the shocks of life. When you've mentally prepared for an outcome, it has less power to disturb you. Instead of being blindsided by loss, rejection, or disappointment, you meet these moments with a sense of calm readiness. This isn't about pessimism, it's about cultivating a mind that is prepared for life's unpredictability. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Often, our worries are blown out of proportion by our minds. Negative visualization helps bring those worries into perspective. By confronting your fears directly, you gain a clearer view of them, and you can begin to see them for what they are. Simply things that may or may not happen. With practice, you'll find that this technique strengthens your resilience and prepares you for whatever lies ahead. Let's bring it all together before we move on to the next part. Today, we've explored the power of the inner citadel, a place within you that no external force can shake if you cultivate it well. We've discussed the Stoic belief in focusing only on what lies within your control, your judgments, your intentions, and your responses. By internalizing this idea, you free yourself from countless sources of stress and anxiety. And by practicing negative visualization, you prepare yourself for life's uncertainties with a steady heart. As we transition into part 2, reflect on this central idea. Freedom is not about controlling everything around you but choosing how you respond. When you master this response, you become like that mountain, standing strong, regardless of the storm. As we transition into the second half of our discussion, let's revisit the idea of inner freedom. Imagine the calm that would fill your life if you truly mastered the art of focusing only on what you control. How much lighter would you feel, knowing that others' opinions or the unpredictability of fate no longer had the power to disturb your inner peace? This is what the Stoics aimed to cultivate, a state of tranquility rooted in self-mastery. Today, we're going to build on the principles we discussed in part 1 and explore some specific practices to strengthen your inner citadel. The first exercise we'll explore is known as mindful detachment. Picture a sculptor chipping away at a stone block, revealing a beautiful form within. This is how you'll approach your thoughts and emotions. Imagine that each thought or feeling is just a piece of marble to be examined, chipped away at, or polished. Mindful detachment means developing the habit of observing your thoughts and feelings without letting them define you or cloud your perception. Let's take an example. Say you receive criticism from someone whose opinion you value. The immediate impulse is to react defensively or to feel hurt. However, instead of letting this reaction carry you away, pause for a moment. Imagine that you are observing this criticism from a distance. Picture it as a pebble dropped into a pond. Watch as the ripples spread, then slowly settle. Detach from the immediate sting and ask yourself, what does this criticism truly mean? Is it within my control to change it? By viewing the situation from a detached perspective, you create space between yourself and the criticism, allowing you to respond calmly rather than react emotionally. The second practice is called the view from above. This exercise is a powerful way to gain perspective and reframe your current challenges. Imagine you are rising above yourself, like a bird ascending higher and higher, until you can see your life as a whole. Picture your home, your city, and then the entire world. This mental exercise allows you to see your problems in a broader context. It reminds you that most challenges, even those that feel overwhelming, are often small in the grand scheme of things. The Stoics used this exercise frequently to remind themselves of life's transience and the relative insignificance of daily frustrations. When you see your life from above, you realize that most things that cause anxiety and worry are, in the end, fleeting. This doesn't mean your challenges aren't real or difficult, but it helps to put them in perspective, reducing their power to disturb your peace. You can practice this exercise daily, especially when you find yourself caught up in the minutiae of a problem or a conflict. Rise above it, look at it from a higher plane, and you'll often find clarity and calm. Another important tool in the Stoic toolkit is journaling. But this isn't about writing for the sake of writing. For the Stoics, journaling was an act of self-reflection and accountability. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful men, kept a personal journal where he recorded his thoughts and reflections on how he could live more virtuously. This practice of self-examination allowed him to continually align himself with his values. When you journal, approach it with a Stoic mindset. Reflect on your day, your actions, and your intentions. Ask yourself questions like, did I let something outside of my control disturb my peace today? Was I truly aligned with my values? Did I respond with patience and wisdom, or did I let emotions cloud my judgment? This process doesn't need to take long, but it has a profound effect. Over time, it builds self-awareness and reinforces the practice of focusing on what is within your control. The fourth technique we'll cover is voluntary discomfort, a practice that may seem counterintuitive at first. This exercise involves intentionally exposing yourself to discomfort in order to build resilience. Now, I'm not suggesting that you plunge into extreme hardship, but rather that you seek small, controlled moments of discomfort to train your mind to withstand challenges. This might mean taking a cold shower, skipping a meal, or abstaining from a luxury for a day. The point is to remind yourself that comfort is not a necessity. Think of it as strengthening a muscle. By willingly enduring discomfort, you teach your mind that you can endure more than you realize. You learn not to be dependent on ease and luxury. Seneca practiced voluntary discomfort regularly, even while living in relative wealth. He would wear simple clothing, fast, or sleep on the floor to remind himself that these comforts were not essential to his well-being. This exercise builds both resilience and gratitude, making you appreciate what you have without becoming dependent on it. Let's connect these exercises to our overarching theme of control. Why do practices like mindful detachment, the view from above, journaling, and voluntary discomfort reinforce our inner citadel? Because they are all acts of self-discipline that focus on what we can control. Each of these practices strengthens our capacity to face life's challenges with equanimity, fortifying our inner self so that external events have less power over us. Now, let's discuss the importance of acceptance. This isn't the passive resignation of giving up. Rather, it's a profound acknowledgement of reality as it is, rather than how we wish it to be. Acceptance is the cornerstone of tranquility. It's the ability to look at life's imperfections, challenges, and changes with a sense of calm. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by our judgments about those events. Acceptance is the antidote to this kind of disturbance. Let's say you lose something valuable. The typical response might be frustration, anger, or regret. But from a Stoic perspective, the loss itself isn't the problem. It's our attachment to what was lost and our refusal to accept reality as it now stands. By practicing acceptance, you train yourself to let go of these attachments. This doesn't mean that loss won't bring sadness, but acceptance allows us to feel that sadness without being consumed by it. As you cultivate acceptance, you also cultivate a sense of gratitude. The Stoics understood that life is fleeting and that everything we hold dear is temporary. By accepting this truth, we learn to appreciate each moment, each relationship, and each opportunity without clinging to them. This shift in perspective allows us to live fully, appreciating what we have while also being prepared to let go when the time comes. Finally, we come to the concept of amor fati, or love of fate. This idea goes beyond mere acceptance. It's about embracing everything that happens as necessary and meaningful. Imagine viewing every event in your life, the good, the bad, the painful, the joyful, as something you would have chosen if you could. This doesn't mean pretending that challenges aren't difficult, but it means choosing to see them as part of your path, as opportunities for growth. Amor fati is one of the highest expressions of Stoic resilience. When you practice this mindset, you stop seeing life as a series of obstacles to overcome and instead view each experience as part of a larger journey. Whether you're faced with success or hardship, you greet each event with a sense of purpose. You see each moment as a teacher, each experience as a lesson. This approach allows you to face life's inevitable twists and turns with courage and grace. As we conclude our lecture, let's take a step back and reflect on the journey we've embarked on today. You've learned the foundational principle of Stoicism, the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. You've been introduced to practices that fortify your inner citadel, like mindful detachment, journaling, and voluntary discomfort. You've explored the importance of acceptance, the power of gratitude, and the transformative nature of embracing amor fati. Consider this: you now have the beginnings of a toolkit that can help you weather life storms. These aren't just ideas, they are practical ways to cultivate resilience, peace, and strength. By focusing on what lies within your control and letting go of the rest, you become unshakable, anchored by an inner calm that external events cannot touch. In the coming weeks, we'll delve into each of these practices in greater depth, exploring more advanced Stoic techniques and principles that will guide you further on this path. But for now, I invite you to experiment with these exercises. Try mindful detachment the next time you feel a surge of emotion. Rise above your challenges with the view from above. Reflect in your journal each evening and find small ways to practice voluntary discomfort. Embrace acceptance and let amor fati guide your view of each experience. By consistently applying these practices, you'll begin to build a fortress of inner strength, your own unshakable core. It won't happen overnight, but with time and patience, you'll find that you can stand firm where others fall, rooted in the knowledge that true peace comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering yourself. With that, our first session draws to a close. Reflect on these teachings, and I look forward to our journey together next week. Let us keep building layer upon layer until you too become a mountain.